every patient that is looking for a new dentist for themselves or for their family is always asking the exact same question. It's, why should I choose you? Why are you the best fit for me?
This is Growth in Dentistry, a dental intelligence podcast, where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry mean to you? I'm Steve Jensen, a dated dental nerd and your host.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Growth in Dentistry podcast. Super excited about today's conversation. I always love when we have very clear models to discuss. I'm such an organizer, and so when people come in and can explain things to me simply and in a way that I can digest, I love it. So before we jump into the topic and I introduce my guest Ryan, huge shout out to the marketing team at Dental Intelligence for sponsoring this podcast week after week after week. A lot of work goes in producing these behind the scenes. So I'm so grateful for them. As always, they have an offering for the listeners of the pod. They are offering a $50 gift card for anyone that will take a demo of Dental Intelligence. So if you've never checked it out, or if it's been a while since you've checked it out, they've got some really cool new features. They've got scorecards, which allows you to get any data point that you want to look at and put it in your own view. Nice and simple just for you. There's also a cool new little AI bot. So if you don't know what those numbers mean or what they're telling you, you can actually ask it, hey, will you analyze my scorecard for me and give me some highlights, give me some lowlights, give me some areas we could focus on within the business. It's super awesome to see the way that they're progressing data in dentistry. On top of all the other cool things, the automated forms right back, automated consents. They're about to release automated post-op or post-appointment messages that are based off of procedure codes. So there's some super cool stuff that you definitely worth checking out. Okay, with that out of the way, I want to introduce Ryan. And Ryan, I should have asked this. I actually don't know how to pronounce your last name. I would say Ryan Menacho, but I'm not sure if that's
You
right.
nailed it.
It's Menacho. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So Ryan is with Firegang Marketing, and Dental Intelligence has worked with them for years, for a really long time. We've worked side by side. I love them because they focus on giving data-driven outcomes to their clients. I know a lot of people want to work with marketing companies that will deliver actual value. So Ryan has been doing this for just over 9 years. So he's been in the industry for a long time, specifically in dental. He's been doing marketing his whole career, but dental specifically for the last 9 years, and couldn't be more excited to talk to him today. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I think there's a lot of different things we can talk about with marketing, but I'm here today to provide some really actionable insights that I really do think that a dentist could end this podcast hearing it and going, I could put that into place today. So I'm excited for some of the things we'll chat about.
Now, before we jump straight into, because there's an actual system that we'll talk about now, but before we do that, Ryan, I want to hear from you. How did you get into dental marketing? Because you can go with a marketing career, you can go about just about anywhere. So I want to hear a little backstory into dental marketing, Firegang, and then let's jump into kind of what you guys are focused on.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll give the quick intro. It's pretty funny because I was in college trying to just figure out what I wanted to do, and I landed in marketing and was like, all right, I want to figure out how to make this marketing thing work. So right after I got out, I was doing all these networking events, and I'm located in Portland, Oregon. So I was going to all these networking events all over the place, just meeting business owners, trying to figure out what direction I should take marketing, because there's so many ways to do it. And just lo and behold, I met the owner of Firegang at one of these networking events, and we started talking, and he was like, I need someone to help me with Facebook ads. I was like, at that time, I was so young that I was like, let's figure it out. I can help out with Facebook ads. And so I kind of just got into the marketing world. And then from there, it was like we were only focusing on dental, and for whatever reason, it just clicked. And I was just nailing these Facebook ads for these dentists from day one, and then, progressed more and more and more and got into more and more different parts of dental marketing. And now I've got a much bigger view of the whole space and what works for dentists across the board with marketing. But it's been good for 9 years. So it's just kind of like a chance encounter that got me here.
I love that. That's kind of how I ended up at Dental Intelligence. Ran into the founder at a mutual friend's wedding reception. He texted me late at night and was like, "Hey, are you trying to do what you're doing now, or do you want to come, do something cool in dentistry with me?" And then, kind of the rest is history. So that's fun. I relate with that.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I want to talk about. So most people, Ryan, when they are going and talking with a marketing agency, they're looking for growth. Like typically there's like, hey, I want to hire an associate, so I need more patients, or hey, my schedule's not as full as I want it to be. So they're coming to a marketing agency to fill that gap where they're hoping like, hey, you'll help make sure that my chairs are full. And most of the time, and by when I say most of the time, I would say probably like 99.9% of the time, their belief is that the solution is new patients, new patients, new patients from the marketing agency. That's like the primary goal, which I'm not saying is wrong per se, but I like the way, I've seen some of your guys' content about how you think about growing a practice. So can we talk about that? Like, do you mind sharing like as Ryan, as you approach this conversation on practice growth and solving these like patient flow growth problems? Can you break it down and talk to me about, talk to me about how you think about that problem?
Definitely. So the way we look at it at Firegang is that when it comes to growing a practice, there are really three main key areas that you have to focus on. And this is what we call the Firegang three-component model, if you will. It's that simple. And it's differentiation, visibility, and conversion. And you have to do all three of these things in order to really grow your practice. So when we think about it from a high level perspective, I think a lot of dentists really look at visibility as kind of like the key area that they always focus on. And they think like, I just got to get the word out about my practice. I've got to, whether that's online or offline mediums, like I got to send flyers out, or I got to Google ads up, or I got to do SEO or run some blogs, have a website. That's all phenomenal. And you have to do that. But a lot of times it's where these practice owners stop with their marketing, and they've just like put all this stuff out about them without thinking through what the other components are. So we have to take a step back. Really, the first step that we take when we work with dental practices is focusing on differentiation. This is really digging deep to understand, what do you offer as a dentistry, because every patient that is looking for a new dentist for themselves or for their family is always asking the exact same question. It's, why should I choose you? Why are you the best fit for me? And you have to be able to clearly answer that question and articulate it within your marketing. When we think about visibility, like running Google ads, you can put an ad out there that says, we're accepting new patients, but that doesn't answer the question of, why should I choose you? So you've got to take a step back and start thinking about, how are we answering that question? Figure out how to answer that question first. And now you can run your Google ads or your mailers or your Facebook ads with that answer in mind and start broadcasting that. And then the last step, of course, is conversion. This is all about knowing your numbers, because at the end of the day, we have to understand what's working, what's not working. If we've got two different messages that we're pushing out there, one of them's probably going to work a little better than the other one. So we've got to dig in and have good systems in place to know our numbers. I have definitely talked to dentists who have said things like, well, 2 months ago we spent $500 on ads, and then last month we spent $1,500 on ads. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I heard the phone ring more. This is obviously not a very data-driven way to approach your marketing. So at Firegang, we really focus on those data-driven insights. Well, let's get to the core of it to understand, well, how many calls did you actually get, and then take that a step further to understand, out of those calls that you got, how many were actually new patient opportunities, and did that specific number go up? We've got some great ways that we can track that, and we can dig in all this in more detail. But when we think about the big perspective, it's like those three things: differentiation, visibility, and conversion. And you nail those, and you really start to see practice growth quickly.
Yeah, I want to make sure you ripped past them. I'm glad you just said them again. I like made a note where I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I say those three things so that everyone can hear them. Visibility, differentiation, and conversion. Kind of these three key elements to make sure that our marketing is going to go well. Now, I'm going to take us on a very fast rabbit hole that nobody asked for, but but it caught my attention. I haven't thought about it for a lot of years. Does the phrase accepting patients actually work? Is there a reason why we use that in dentistry, or is that just like a tale as old as time? And then we can get back to the actual conversation. I just think it's so funny.
Yeah,
Accepting,
it's one of those things where I think it's far more prevalent in medical than in
yeah,
dentistry, where if I'm looking for like a primary care provider, that actually does matter and can help. But in dentistry, typically everybody's accepting new patients these
yeah,
days, so it's not what it used to be.
yeah.
Um, I think it's okay to say it if you want to, but you have to have something else associated with it. Like, we're accepting new patients, and if you come to us, we're going to do these three things for you, right?
I just have seen, I drive around and I still see it. I still see dental practice that have a little banner that says, now accepting new patients. And I just think, was there a time when you weren't? Maybe there was. Maybe there are legit practices out there that are like, someone shows up in their door and they're like, sorry, we don't want anybody new, no matter what. But anyway, I've always just thought
Yeah.
it's a funny premise behind the phrase. But I wondered, hey, maybe Ryan knows. Maybe it really does work, and that phrasing is way more thoughtful for healthcare, and it's just proven to work. Anyway, sorry, back to the visibility differentiation conversion. Where do you want to spend some time, Ryan? Visibility, I think most people, understand that concept or want that concept. That also probably leans into like when they're buying a practice or starting a practice, making sure that they're, visible and they understand, okay, that can help me attract patients, convenience. I'm located in a certain area, so it's easy for people to get to me. So I'm probably, wanting to lean into either differentiation or conversion. Where do you want to lean in?
I think it'd be good to start with differentiation.
Okay.
And it's kind of like you said, when it comes to visibility, at the end of the day, like it is kind of as simple as saying, we're just going to spend more on Google. That increases your visibility. So you've really got to dial in like, okay, as you take that step from 500 bucks a month on Google to 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000 a month on Google ads, what are you saying in those ads to make sure that they're effective? And that's all about differentiation. So let's dig into that and what that looks like.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Tell me then. So differentiation, what do you mean by that? So as a dentist, I'm a general dentist, and I mean I get the general concept. Somehow I have to be different than the other dentists in my area so that patients have a reason to come to me. So maybe a question I'll ask, a natural question is like, what do you see that works? How do I think about differentiating myself as a dentist, and what are some paths I can take?
Yeah, great question. Because so at Firegang, we have looked at this 1,000 different ways, and we've tried a ton of different stuff over the last 15 years. And what we found is that generally speaking, there are three categories of kind of these three buckets of these things that fall into differentiation. And what we call them are is your tangible uniqueness. Because when we talk about being different, you really want to think about how are you communicating to patients what makes you different in a really tangible and palpable way. I like to use this example. It's a little silly, but if you say like, I'm the best dentist in town, it's not tangible, right? And part of being tangible also means that there's someone out there that's like saying the complete opposite. Like nobody's saying I'm the worst dentist in town. So there's nothing to like to back it. It has no meaning. It's not tangible. So we can do a lot
Isn't there a
better.
company out there that you can just pay and it like gives you the number one dentist in my area award? I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
Oh, you could certainly do that. You can always find someone who says that you're the number one. Um, but if we
Yeah, it's called
want
America's Best Dentist.
to, yeah,
Yeah, and I can just pay for it. That's fantastic.
there you go. That you've solved it.
I don't know what it costs, but I'm on their website anyway. I don't want to. I'm not promoting them. I'm just saying. I was pretty sure at some point I like was on a dentist website and I was like America's Best Dentist. Anyway, so that's a thing.
Yeah. So when we think about like this concept though of like best dentist in town, we can start to drill in and say, okay, well, how do we want to describe what best means? And so I
Yeah.
mentioned there's three categories of this. Typically, it comes into money, time, and convenience. If you can save a patient money, that's going to separate you. If you can make things, if you can save them time in some way or make things better for their timetable, then they're going to like that. And the last one is convenient. How can we make the whole experience so convenient for this patient that they're willing to overcome things like money, things like distance from you, things like insurance, all because you're just making the process so great for them. So let's dig into money. So not every dentist wants to go down this route, but there are a lot of dentists who are totally fine with it. This is things like doing $1 or free consultations. These are things like having an in-house dental plan. These are things like doing 0% financing and getting that taken care of for higher value procedures, or having like a new patient special, right? These are all super tangible things where imagine you put out a Google ad that says, we have an in-house dental plan for $79 a month. Come in and you don't even need insurance, just pay us that. That is we can argue whether or not you want to do that, if it makes sense in your market, but that's very tangible. And a patient can see that, they can grasp it, they can click on that ad, go to your website and decide if that plan is right for them. Same thing could be true with any of these other things associated with money. Now, we can also dig into time. Let's say you're the dentist who's like, I don't want to offer any monetary based incentives, totally fine. You don't have to. We could also look at time. These are things like we're going to be open late. We'll be open early. We're open on weekends. We offer same day services like same day crowns. We get you in and out. We do emergencies, same day appointments, all that stuff, right? Very, very time based. We have some dentists that we've worked with where they don't do any kind of monetary stuff, but they're the best at time. I mean, I'm talking like they're open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and they do emergencies all day long. Like if you want to go, they're always available for you. So they just compete on that. And that's awesome. And it's tangible and they get a ton of patients just because of that. The last one is convenience. So think about how can we make this experience more convenient? This would be like a bilingual staff, so you can speak multiple languages to all sorts of different patients. This would be things like you accept insurance, or if you don't accept insurance, you can help them with like insurance handling, take care of that for them, even if you're out of network. Offering other services like sedation, or doing like online booking. So I don't have to call your practice. I can book something at midnight to get on the calendar for tomorrow. These are all different ways to make the process more convenient. And what we find at Firegang is that the more of this stuff that we do, if we can market like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these all at once. These are when these practices get so competitive that they absolutely crush it. And what I always tell dentists is that you don't have to do it all, but you have to commit to something. You can't be the dentist that's like, hey, I'm only going to be open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'm going to offer, we're fully fee for service. And that's just the way it is. It's like, that's great. You can do that if you've been in business for 30 years and everyone knows you by name and they fly out to get implants from your practice. Great. You've made it in that way. But especially if you're a startup or you're struggling a little bit in your marketplace and you're not getting the patients that you want, you've got to find these ways to be competitive. And these are some of the best avenues that you can take to start understanding, here's what we want to compete on. And now when you go to build out your ads, when you go to put those mailers out there, whatever you're going to do, you can incorporate all these different components into them, and that becomes your messaging. And patients really respond well to it.
Yeah, will you say the three things again out loud? Kind of those three areas of differentiation, just so we can like bookmark that.
Yeah, that's going to be money, time, and convenience.
Okay, sweet. Now, are we going to move on to conversion and talk about that? So like it's one thing to go,
Mhm.
differentiate ourselves, and then, we're kind of going to skip over visibility, but that's like, hey, now that we have differentiate ourselves, we're going to drive interest in the dental practice. So now patients are going to start noticing us, that's on Google, Facebook, we're running ads. Do you guys do any like mailer stuff? Is that still effective?
It is in some markets. We found it to be less and less effective
Yeah.
if you compare it to like a digital, if it's like a like dollar per dollar against like Google ads, most of the time, Google
You're
ads are more
kind of
effective. So I'd rather
okay.
just run Google.
So visibility, we're going to get visibility, and that's kind of that next step. But let's jump from that because I don't know if that's like table stakes or not. But I think where we start to find a lot of gaps in different practices, at least on the dental intelligence side. Like when we go and look, there's a lot of gaps on the conversion side where
Mhm.
I think the market's getting more savvy about this. I think practices are starting to realize like, oh, what's happening on my phones is really crucial. But can you start talking to us about the way you guys approach that conversion conversation and how to be the most successful there? So now that I'm driving visibility, I've differentiated myself. How do I make sure that as many of these patients as possible actually end up showing up in the practice?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with phones. And there's a lot of different things we look at when it comes to the conversion side, but I'd say first and foremost is looking at what's happening on the phones. The way
Mm,
we approach this at Firegang is we just listen to all the calls, and so we understand what's happening at the front desk, who's saying what, and it's really important for us to be able to break this down in multiple categories because we want to see, like, I'm just going to give an example with easy numbers. Like, let's say in a month a practice got 100 calls from Google ads. Well,
yep.
what happened in those calls? It's like, let's say hypothetically you had 50 calls that were all for like the wrong number, then you had 25 that were all just people like asking to reschedule or confirming their appointment time, and then maybe you had 25 new patient opportunities after that. It's like 100 calls. If you don't actually look at them on the back end of what happened, you might think, great, we had 100 calls and we got them from Google and our Google ads are crushing it. That's awesome. But then what actually happened. And then if we dig deeper, what we start to find when we listen to these calls is like, okay, we had these 25 new patient opportunities, but the staff only turned 5 of those into new patient appointments. So now all of a sudden we've gone from a $2,500 ad budget to 100 calls to 5 new patients. And we can look back at this and understand, where's the breakdown? Well, we found that there's a couple breakdowns. It might be on the ads because we had all these wrong number calls. But we also had a breakdown on the phones where we converted only 5 out of 25 opportunities. So then we can come in and start looking at, okay, what do we where do we need to adjust? So the kind of the action item here is you have to be tracking your calls and you have to have someone listening to them, some way to audit that performance, because just trying to I hear dentists all the time say this, well, I overhear them at the front desk. It's not enough. There has to be some kind of feedback loop where you can see exactly what's happening and look at those numbers.
Now, do you guys have a way, Dental Intelligence, we don't have a tool that's tracking phone call performance. So we've always been friendly with the folks at Patient Prism. The last, couple of years have been working with the PeerLogic team as well. I think they've got an AI call tracking tool. Ryan, do you guys suggest anyone, or do you have anything that you guys use yourselves to
Yeah,
help?
we use CallRail, and it doesn't have any
Okay, cool.
specific or at least we don't use any specific tool within it to try to analyze these calls. We just
Yeah.
keep it simple where we track them by source to. So we'll understand how many calls came from Google and Facebook and so on. But then again, it's just doing the manual work of listening to these calls and understanding what happened. And someone's got to do it. We do this for our clients, but you could have someone at your office do it, as long as someone is just like, okay, call made. Was it an opportunity? Did it turn into an appointment?
Yep.
Tracked. Next call. Next call. That's what we find to be the most powerful measure of success.
Yeah, and it's perfectly accurate because you've taken the time to actually understand, okay, this converted or didn't. This is what that opportunity was on the phone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. So cool. So talk me through then, what do you see with best practices? So you mentioned a practice might have 25 new patient phone calls and only convert 5 of them. Why does that happen? And then
hmm
how do I think as a practice owner or office manager, someone kind of over that? How do I think about improving conversion there?
Yeah, this is a really big topic, but there are some I would say there's 2 key things where if you can at least start with these, you're going to make some serious headway. The
Right.
first is making sure whoever's answering the phone is controlling the conversation. We talk about this a lot with our clients to say, if you're answering the phone, you are in charge of how that discussion goes. So think about whenever you're in an interview, right? Whoever's asking the questions is in control of that conversation.
Okay.
So it, it's because they can direct it whatever direction that we want to go. So one of the issues that we hear a lot is someone answers the phone and they say, "Hi, how's it going?" And then that's basically they've relinquished all of that control to the patient, who
Uh,
now starts asking a bunch of questions. And you get into these really big challenging situations where then they start asking stuff about insurance and pricing, and you don't really want to give that over the phone because you can't do a proper diagnosis. And then the patient leaves and they're like, well, I'll go talk to someone else because you guys seem too expensive. It's one simple example, but we see this stuff happen all the time. So you need to be in control of that conversation, direct it how you want it to go, and make sure you're asking for the appointment every single time. Don't wait for the patient to ask for an appointment.
yeah,
Um,
cool. In fact, do you suggest, so just to make sure everyone hears what you said, in control of the phone call equals the one asking the questions. Do you ask for an appointment pretty early on? What are some of the basic questions people might ask to keep control? I think that's one thing people are going to hear. Is it do I ask if they have an emergency or tooth pain, or if they're looking for a hygiene cleaning? Do I start like that and kind of start decision treeing them into the bucket I want them to? I'm imagining that's how you're thinking about it, but I've never done this personally, so I'm just saying what I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah, it's great to just start right at the beginning of figuring out why did they call in the first place. If
Yeah.
you can start there and understand what are they calling about, because they're going to tell you, right? They're going to say I have
Yeah.
tooth pain, or oh, my family's looking for a new dentist. Okay,
Yeah.
great. If they open with something as simple as that, you can go straight for asking for the appointment. You don't
Yeah.
have to mess
Right.
around with it. Oh, me and my family are looking for a new dentist. Awesome. Well, we can get you in. Would you prefer a morning or afternoon appointment? Then you're taking some of the
Perfect.
pressure off and you're just asking what works for you guys. Let's get you in the morning or afternoon. Then you solidify a time and you just get them in. Sometimes the patient will give you a little bit of pushback and want to ask something else. It's okay if they do, but again, keep control of that conversation overall.
Okay, so that's the first thing is making sure that you're in control of the conversation. What's the second thing you said? If you can kind of hit these two things as a starting point, then this will tip the
Yeah.
conversion your
The
favor.
second one is try to never say no. And I know that that's like it sounds impossible, but there are really good ways to do it. So I'll give you an example. This happens a lot with like insurance. Is like someone calls up and you say, "Hey," and you're asking something like, "What are you calling in about today?" And they're like, "Well, I just wanted to know if you take my insurance." Let's say you're a fee for service office, for example. You don't want to be like, "No, we don't take insurance." Because then the page is going to go, oh, okay, bye. And then you've lost that opportunity, right? So
Yeah.
a much better way of taking it is to say, let's talk about the insurances that we do and don't take, and then explain what your situation looks like and how you can help that patient through all the different financial options that you have available. And so you're not saying no, you're just telling them what you have available and what you can offer. And if they still don't want to do it, I mean, that's totally fine. But you're not saying no, you're just framing it as here's what we can do for you. And now you can decide if it works for you or not.
Yeah,
Much
I
different
love
framing will dramatically increase your conversion rate on the phones.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else that the team can do to help with conversion? I mean, phones is probably the biggest thing. You guys, I'm assuming, are doing some things to help with, I guess that more falls into visibility probably, like the way you're working with, making sure there's online reviews and the way the ad copy's written. That's all probably visibility stuff. I mean, those things do, I would assume, impact conversion and the way you differentiate. Like those things are going to set up that conversation for the best possible. But I'm assuming there's probably like really rare. Do people actually walk into dental practices, or is it pretty much like the phones is the main one?
Phones is definitely the main one now.
Oh, I'm missing online. So you mentioned like online booking. So there are some
Mhm.
conversions, or like people are starting to do some like web chat stuff or missed call text. And
Yeah,
people are messing around with like voice answering. So like AI stuff or after hours answering services. Can you kind of talk about maybe what you're seeing on some of those? So maybe some of the
mhm.
online options for conversion, as well as maybe these other tech options, and if they're helpful
Yeah.
or not. Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going to go because I was going to say it's typically about phones, but one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that one of the things that we see a lot when we start digging into the data, especially, is missed calls. It's not just about when you take a call and you miss the opportunity, but actual missed calls. So I just saw this on a client about 3 weeks ago where they had I believe it was like a 18 or 19% missed call rate during office hours. So you think about basically 1 in 5 calls just were straight up not getting answered to the practice during office hours. So you look at that and you say, okay, well, these could be new patient opportunities right here. And we're just flat out not even answering them. A lot of these people are just not going to leave a message. They're going to go talk to somebody else. So you've got to think about how long has this been going on? If nobody's looking at your numbers, you wouldn't even know what you're missing. So that's why we talk about, well, there's these other options like missed call text back. There's these things like online booking that can kind of shore up this gap. We typically recommend two main things here. One is just online booking. It keeps it really simple, and
Yeah.
that works really well for a lot of practices. The other thing that we have seen work extremely well is just to simply um, do like kind of some kind of staff rotation. It's like we had that same practice that I'm talking about. Basically, everybody went to lunch at the exact same time, so the practice had the most number of missed
Yeah.
calls during like this 1 hour block during the day, and then they had others throughout the day. But it was like they just kept it simple as like there's always one person there to answer the phones, and it's way more common than you might think. And so if that's you, your practice, start rotating those lunches and make it so there's always someone who can answer that call.
And then can I think about it kind of the same way with after hours phone calls? Or, is that like when I think about hiring a call service, or do I
Yeah,
wait till the next day? Because I'm assuming there are some after hours calls. Maybe I actually don't know how much volume there is there. Like me as a patient, if I see someone's closed, because I'll be finding them primarily from their Google listing. And if I see they're closed, then it's like, I'm not gonna even like try because I know it will go to, voicemail, or at least I believe as much. So maybe there are after hours calls. Do you have any pulse on after hour call volume? Is that a thing I need to think about heavily, or is that more like a fringe opportunity?
yeah, it's case by case basis. It's also something that we track those after our calls, but There's ways to improve upon it. So one for one, what you can do if you get really nitty gritty into your ads, you can make it so they don't run when you don't have your practice open, and right there, that's going to cut a bunch of calls off, so you don't have to worry about it. But you're still going to get those after-hour calls if you've got like a really strong organic presence. And so there are clients that do use some answering services. We have yet to find one that's very good. The most successful clients are just basically direct having someone in the office take calls after hours, and they just rotate that person around. And so you have your every Monday you're taking some calls and you're answering them at home, and you're getting those people scheduled. Some practices have done that. It's kind of few and far between, but those are the most successful ones.
Oh man. Well, time is flying, and we're already like
Yeah.
up at the end of the episode. I ask every single guest the same question to end, which is, what does growth in dentistry mean to you? You're welcome. If you want to give any other like, hey, here's the last couple like tips and tricks, you can share those. But just so everyone hears, today we really focused on, how to think about growing the practice. Ryan shared kind of the three main focuses from a marketing perspective. So differentiation, visibility, and then conversion. And seriously, man, like really great advice. It's so like refreshing to talk to someone that can just lay it out so simply with like actionable stuff that folks can just like go and implement. So any other last advice you'd give? And then I'd love to hear your answer to the question, what does growth in dentistry mean to you?
Yeah, I think they're probably kind of the same.
Cool.
Honestly, because when you said that, like, what does growth in dentistry mean to me? Event right where I went to is at the heart of our model. We have this like Venn diagram, and there's differentiation, visibility, and conversion. And where they converge in the center, it says a remarkable and rewarding practice. And so, what we always ask our clients, and it's kind of one of our tenets at Firegang, is like we want to help these dentists create a remarkable and rewarding practice. Like, what does that mean to you? Because how you adapt this model is going to ultimately be driven by what that is. We have these practices who are like, I want to be the implant guy that only does a couple patients a month, and they're like these $50,000 cases. And we've got other practices we've worked with that are accept everything, Medicaid, HMOs, PPOs, everything, and they're doing zillions of patients and at the low cost. But because what's rewarding to them is treating everyone, and they want to have as much impact as they can, and that's really cool. So when I think about that, it's like just whatever is remarkable and rewarding to you, whatever those two words mean to you, that's the answer to your growth in dentistry. Really figure out what that is, and then apply this model to make that possible.
Yeah, I like that a ton. This, which I think is a good measure, remarkable and rewarding. Those are great. So thank you, Ryan, again for joining, and thank you, guests, for joining as well. Now, Ryan, I got to ask folks that want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way to do that, you can go to our website, firegang.com, and you can learn more about Firegang, our services, and all of that. You can also book a free practice growth acceleration call, and you'll be able to take 40, 45 minutes on a video call just like this with me or someone on my team, where we'll just talk to you about your practice and what it would look like to make some changes and apply this model to it to help you grow. So I'd recommend doing that there. We'll also include a link where you can get a free copy of our book where it outlines this model in much more detail. And you can go through all of these steps and get some even more nitty gritty details of how you can get this implemented in your practice. We've had thousands of dentists order this book. You can get it for free with free shipping. So I'd encourage everyone to take advantage of that.
Okay, sweet. So like an actual book. In my head, I was like picturing an ebook. So that's sick.
No, it's like almost 400 pages
Oh, that's great. So,
packed.
and I'll put Ryan, I'll give you the link. I'll put it in the show notes, both the website for that one-on-one practice growth call. That's super cool of you guys. And then I'll put the link for the book as well. So uh,
Awesome.
thanks again, Ryan, for joining. And then thanks guests for joining. This has been another episode of the Growth in Dentistry podcast. My name's Steve Jensen, your host and fellow data nerd. Keep growing. We'll talk soon.